Hello everyone. On March 5th, as China's National People's Congress (NPC) convened in Beijing, the proceedings appeared strikingly subdued and lacking in vigor, especially against the backdrop of President Trump's decisive and aggressive military strikes on Iran. In multiple dimensions, Beijing is visibly contracting. Premier Li Qiang's government work report set the GDP growth target for 2026 in the range of 4.5% to 5%, marking the lowest official figure since 1991. The stated rationale was to preserve room for structural adjustment, risk prevention, and reform. In plain terms, this signals an acknowledgement that the economy is likely to continue slowing and may fall short of previous benchmarks. Yet Beijing has preemptively absolved itself of responsibility by pointing to the uncertainty in the external environment that everyone has seen recently. This is classic deflection. The regime has already prepared its alibi. The contraction extends beyond economics to attendance itself. NPC Standing Committee Chairman Zhao Leiji announced that out of 2,878 expected delegates, only 2,765 were present, with 113 absent. This represents the lowest attendance level under Xi Jinping's tenure since he took power in 2012, excluding the 2022 period dominated by strict COVID controls. Meanwhile, despite this economic retrenchment, China's defense budget for the year has been increased by 7%, reaching approximately 1.996 trillion RMB, roughly 276.8 billion. No country in the world is currently preparing to wage war against China, so why the persistent military buildup? A notable shift appeared in this year's Two Sessions rhetoric on Taiwan. The previous phrasing of opposing Taiwan independence and secession has been upgraded to resolutely striking down Taiwan independence separatist forces. This hardening of language indicates that Xi Jinping is growing increasingly impatient and unwilling to see the goal of reunification remain unfulfilled under his watch. As a former U.S. Defense Department official observed, while Iran has caused considerable disruption and created headaches for Washington, it functions essentially as Beijing's proxy or vanguard. The real orchestrator behind the scenes, the primary threat to U.S. national security and global stability, remains the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. If you find this topic of interest, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss future episodes. Downward revision of the GDP growth target. In his report to the NPC, Premier Li Qiang set the 2026 GDP growth target as a range of 4.5% to 5%, departing from the prior year's formulation of around 5%. This is not only the lowest since 1991, but also a clear expression of diminished confidence in sustained economic expansion. Li explained the range as providing flexibility for structural adjustment, risk prevention, and reform. Shen Danyang, head of the report drafting team, elaborated during a March 5 State Council Information Office press briefing in response to a question from an American journalist. The external environment this year is even more complex and volatile, with more unpredictable factors in economic operations than anticipated. The range was thus designed to leave buffer space. He pointedly remarked, "Regarding the uncertainty in this year's external environment, everyone has seen the recent international situation." Beijing clearly recognizes the severe economic headwinds ahead. Setting a 4.5%-5% range is largely performative, a way to save face by suggesting a deliberate shift away from growth worship toward high-quality development. Some regime-aligned commentators have praised it effusively, claiming the new target demonstrates a pragmatic, feet-on-the-ground approach amid complex domestic challenges and a difficult global trade landscape. They argue that maintaining even this level of growth under such strains would itself be a remarkable achievement. Others have noted that the target and policy framework were finalized at the end of 2025, before the U.S.-Israeli military campaign against Iran commenced, so the conflict's impact was not factored in. Yet that war is highly detrimental to China, given the Strait of Hormuz's critical role as a vital trade artery. In short, not only did the drafting team prepare excuses for economic shortfalls in advance, but aligned experts have been burnishing Beijing's image from the outset, even deploying superlatives like remarkable. Xi Jinping can only lament beyond economic losses from the Iran war the real damages to face and credibility. Analyst Yulun Ni, writing for The Diplomat and affiliated with the Jamestown Foundation, argues that the entire Chinese architecture in the Middle East has suffered a severe blow. Beijing now faces immediate risks of energy security collapse, paralysis of defense exports, and rupture of the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. More gravely, it confronts a terrifying dual reality. Washington is freeing itself from Middle East strategic burdens and redirecting military resources toward the Indo-Pacific, thereby accelerating the closure of the so-called Davidson window for potential annexation of Taiwan. Simultaneously, China's influence in the global south is rapidly eroding. The US-Israeli strikes have profound implications for global energy markets, delivering a systemic shock to the world's largest energy importer. Beijing's three covert energy networks, Venezuela, Russia, Iran, have successively crumbled, eliminating access to cheap, sanctioned oil. Trade with Iran relied heavily on non-dollar settlements and barter to evade US sanctions. With the regime's collapse, that system has imploded, forcing China back to the global spot market, where it now pays war-induced premiums and conducts massive dollar-denominated transactions. This return to scrutinized dollar dealings will severely deplete China's strategic foreign exchange reserves. Beyond energy, the fall of Tehran has devastated Beijing's ambitions for its military-industrial complex. Arms exports had been rising sharply, generating revenue while embedding Chinese technical standards and political influence in third-world countries. Those multi-billion-dollar deals are now vaporized amid the chaos in Tehran, yet compared to the profound loss of face, the economic damage is almost trivial. Clients in the global south, existing and potential, are now confronted with a stark reality. Chinese military equipment cannot withstand Western strikes, a vulnerability compounded by corruption and purges within the PLA. The westward thrust of the BRI positioned the Middle East as a key geo-economic and geopolitical hub, but the main land corridors through Russia and Iran are now constrained, and Tehran's instability has turned strategic assets into investment black holes. Billions in committed funds for telecommunications, transportation, and other infrastructure face the risk of becoming toxic assets or being frozen, inflicting major financial pain on state-owned enterprises and marking a structural defeat for Beijing's ambitions in the Eurasian heartland. From the broader perspective of great power competition, Iran's sustained weakening signals a profound US strategic pivot. For the past 2 decades, Middle East entanglements tied down American forces, granting Beijing geopolitical breathing room to modernize its military and pressure the Taiwan Strait. With that burden lifted, Washington can redeploy carrier strike groups and air power decisively toward the Indo-Pacific, directly targeting China. Once Middle East operations wind down, US forces may already hold consolidated positions in the Asia-Pacific, potentially slamming shut the Davidson window for successful annexation of Taiwan and encircling Beijing in a tighter containment network. Moreover, the Iranian upheaval delivers longer-term damage by shattering the myth of China as a reliable security provider. Over the past decade, Beijing cultivated deep influence in the global south, particularly Africa and Latin America, positioning itself as a benevolent counterweight to Western hegemony. Yet, when its most important strategic partner faced an existential threat, Beijing's response was limited to words. Social media discourse now brands China a paper tiger, eager to extract economic gains through resource plunder and debt-trap diplomacy, yet unwilling or unable to wield hard power in defense of allies. For developing nations increasingly reliant on Beijing for political protection and military security, this realization is chilling. 113 delegates are absent from the NPC. Another noteworthy development is the record-high absenteeism at this year's NPC, likely linked to Xi Jinping's sweeping purges. On the morning of March 5th, Zhao Leiji stated that of 2,878 expected delegates, 2,765 attended, with 113 absent. Bloomberg reported this as the highest absence count under Xi, excluding 2022, underscoring turbulence in the legislature amid the widening scope of official purges. In 2022, under stringent COVID measures, 161 delegates were absent. Historical comparison, last year, 49 absent out of 2,929. In 2024, 56 out of 2,956. In 2023, 25 out of 2,077. The Presidium list released March 4th shows 167 members this year, down 9 from last year's 176. 14 individuals from last year's Presidium are missing, including 6 already officially announced as fallen, e.g. former Inner Mongolia Party Secretary Sun Shaocheng, former Chairwoman Wang Lixia, former Guangxi Chair Lan Tianli, and former CMC Vice Chairman Zhang Yuxia and He Weidong, plus former Joint Staff Department Head Liu Zhenli. Ma Xingri remains the only one whose whereabouts are unclear. New provincial number one leaders appointed in the past year have entered the presidium, including Inner Mongolia Party Secretary Wang Weizhong, Liaoning Party Secretary Shu Kunlin, Xinjiang Party Secretary Chen Xiaojiang, Inner Mongolia Chair Bao Gang, and Guangxi Chair Wei Tao. 6 consecutive days of zero PLA aircraft harassment in the Taiwan Strait, pre-Xi-Trump meeting facade. Early 2026 has brought an unusual period of calm in Taiwan's skies. Data compiled by the Secure Taiwan Society from official sources shows that year-to-date in 2026, the PLA has dispatched a total of 460 sorties, including drones, into Taiwan's ADEs, a drop of at least 46.5% compared to the same period in 2025. February alone recorded just 190 sorties, the lowest monthly figure since the Ministry of National Defense began daily real-time disclosures in 2022. Researcher Tristan Tang noted that starting February 27th, PLA aircraft have been absent from the Taiwan Strait area for 6 consecutive days, an exceptionally rare extended silence. In this year's government work report, the Taiwan section drew particular attention. The phrasing shifted from last year's resolutely opposing Taiwan independence, secession, and external interference to resolutely striking down Taiwan independent separatist forces. BBC analysis highlights the verb upgrade from defensive oppose to proactive strike and the addition of separatist forces, shifting focus from abstract behavior to concrete individuals and organizations. The phrase great cause of reunification was moved forward from the second paragraph in 2025 to near the end of the first paragraph in 2026, placed alongside peaceful development, elevating its strategic weight. This rhetorical hardening likely reflects Xi Jinping's growing anxiety. He perceives the same narrowing window for annexation that US analysts have identified, and he is becoming increasingly impatient. Yet precisely during this period, Taiwan's airspace has experienced anomalous quiet, with 6 straight days of no PLA incursions as of now. 2 unnamed Taiwanese national security officials told Reuters that Xi may be deliberately dialing down military pressure to create a relatively conciliatory diplomatic atmosphere ahead of his anticipated late March meeting with President Trump, essentially signaling, look, the Taiwan Strait situation is stabilizing. There's no need to sell arms to Taiwan. However, INDSR researcher Su Tzu-yun told Reuters that the real driver is likely the ongoing large-scale anti-corruption purge within the PLA. At the same time, one cannot rule out a longer-term possibility. This quiet period coincides with massive upheaval in the Middle East. Some analysts suggest Beijing may be using the interval to rapidly digest lessons from recent large-scale exercises and observe how US forces respond under the strain of potential multi-front commitments. An anonymous defense official cautioned that while aerial activity has decreased, PLA Navy vessels and China Coast Guard ships remain highly active around Taiwan. Another warned, temporary silence does not indicate a change in intent. We cannot exclude the possibility that Zhongnanhai is secretly preparing for larger-scale military action. Taiwan must not become complacent. Wang Yi's golden advice draws mockery. Only the CCP could utter such shameless lines regarding US arms sales to Taiwan. One must mention Foreign Minister Wang Yi's recent statement, following the US-Israeli Operation Epic Fury, which eliminated Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei and over 40 senior military and political figures. Wang, in a call with Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar, urged an immediate halt to military operations, declaring that the true value of military power lies not on the battlefield, but in preventing war. This line sparked widespread laughter and derision across Taiwanese online communities. Many pointed out the irony given frequent KMT criticisms that the Lai administration's arms purchases are provocative and risk war. Netizens remarked, "Hey, blues and whites, come look, your role model just got slapped in the face. Your big brother says military strength prevents war. Wait, but the KMT says Lai's arms buys are about starting war. Something's off here." No embarrassment on their part means embarrassment for everyone else. Coming from the country that constantly threatens armed unification of Taiwan, this has zero credibility. Shameless words like that, only China could say them. China increases military spending. Eyes fixed on the US and Taiwan. AFP reported that on March 5th, Beijing announced a 7% increase in the 2026 defense budget, planning to allocate 1.9296 trillion RMB, about $276.8 billion. Li Kong stated that China will strengthen military capabilities and launch major defense-related projects over the next 5 years. Analysts indicate the funds will support salary increases, training, encirclement exercises around Taiwan, cyber warfare enhancements and acquisition of advanced equipment. Military commentator and former instructor Song Jongping remarked, "Without powerful military strength and technological superiority, our diplomatic stance will inevitably be coerced or even dictated by certain countries, including the United States." He added that the PLA must enhance capabilities to fully restore jurisdiction over the disputed Spratly Islands, believed to hold rich natural resources. According to SIPRI, the U.S. remains the world's top military spender at $997 billion in 2024. China's official defense budget was 1.7% of GDP, far below the U.S.'s 3.4% and Russia's 7.1%. Niklas Swanström, director of the Stockholm-based Institute for Security and Development Policy, noted that while China's absolute spending, second globally, and rapid capability development raise concerns among neighbors, China's military buildup is fueling an arms race in Asia and pushing countries, especially those with territorial disputes with Beijing, closer to Washington. Whether China could prevail in a conflict with the U.S. remains uncertain. The plan boasts more hulls than any other navy, yet lags in total tonnage nuclear-powered submarines and aircraft carriers. NTU's James Charr observed that in hardware and real combat experience, the U.S. retains world-class armed forces. Swanström highlighted U.S. advantages in global logistics, advanced submarines and stealth technology, larger nuclear arsenal, seasoned combat personnel, and extensive alliance networks. There is concern that prolonged Middle East conflict could dilute U.S. Indo-Pacific resources. On March 5th, former U.S. Defense Department official Hu Jiandong told CNA that U.S. munitions supply chains are segmented. Middle East, Europe, and forward-deployed U.S. stocks do not overlap with Asia-Pacific inventories. Hu stressed, "Indopacom will not allow a power vacuum in Asia. The U.S. national security system clearly understands that while Iran and others can create disturbances, only the CCP possesses the capacity to destroy America and threaten its survival and national security. Thus, Washington will ensure Asia-Pacific resources remain on standby. Taiwan need not worry excessively about diversion due to Middle East events." On risks of friendly fire in multinational operations, Hu cited a recent Kuwait incident, Kuwaiti F-18 mistakenly striking a U.S. F-15, as a cautionary tale emphasizing dual verification, systems plus secondary means, e.g. visual. He noted that Taiwan-purchased U.S. aircraft and missiles include identification systems. Even under electronic warfare, classified methods like flight altitude and operational zones prevent misidentification. Regarding integration of the Taiwan-U.S. Common Operational Picture, COP, Hu described it as the core value of continued U.S. equipment procurement, ensuring both sides speak the same language. Hu likened system integration to a switch. Once both sides agree to activate it, real-time intelligence sharing becomes possible, an indispensable technical foundation for any future joint mission to defend Taiwan.